Hello everyone, hope you're doing very well. Thank you very much for tuning in today for another episode here at the Aquarium Project. I am just kicking back and looking at my fish basically, and I thought, hey, why don't I just jump on and bring you guys along from the ride, for the ride even. I just wanted to say thank you very much for tuning in, I appreciate it. Again, as we always say, if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and all the good stuff that helps make this channel run. It means a lot to me, so yeah, that would be cool. Thank you very much. But the thing I wanted to talk about today was, I think the problem with this video is it's going to be very sort of New Zealand focused, but that's alright. We still have a lot of New Zealand viewers, and I'm sure the ideas, the general tenets will I guess hold true no matter what. And the question I wanted to ask is, if I'm a normal hobbyist like you guys watching, just like an average someone at home who's maybe a bit more serious but not like in the industry, how do I go about sourcing rare fish? Like if I'm after a specific fish that's not one that you can walk into any old shop and buy, what do I do? How do I go about that? What things might I need to consider? All that kind of stuff. So I think this little guide will hopefully give you guys at least a starting point of where to look and what to do to start getting in it. So yeah, let's jump right into it, so the first thing that you'll want to check, obviously, this part's definitely a New Zealand specific part, but the first thing you'll want to check is this fish available in New Zealand? Unfortunately, a lot of times, like we don't have 100% access to every fish in New Zealand because we operate on a whitelist system of like fish have to be allowed to be imported instead of fish having to be not allowed to be imported, if that makes sense. So it's like kind of a, positive confirmation of allowing it, if that makes sense. So that's what you want to make sure of. Is it available in New Zealand? It doesn't necessarily need to be able to import it to be available. Like for example, Danios, we can't import Danios, but there's heaps of Danios around and they are sort of established within the hobby. So you can still get them, even though you can't import them. So that's a little bit hard. What you want to do is just like talk to as many people as possible. Like, talk to your local fish store, talk to other hobbyists, ask on Facebook groups and stuff like, is this thing around? Whatever fish it might be. And then kind of go from there. So that's the first number one step. Number two is then you will need to start sort of I kind of want to describe it as making connections, but that's not quite what I mean. But like, you do want to start talking to people. Like talk to your local hobbyists, talk to people who know this stuff in that particular space, if that makes sense. So like, to tell this story, I guess we'll probably need examples. So like, say I'm after a really specific fancy pleco that's not common. So to be able to find that, you won't want to go ask an African cichlid breeder or a fish store specializing in live bearers or whatever. You will want to find the people who would be in the fancy pleco space. Maybe breeders, or if there's any stores in your area, or even stores within reach that are kind of focusing a bit more on that kind of side of things. So like if someone comes in asking for a specific fancy pleco, to me, I may be able to do it, but I'm probably not the best person. But if you're after a specific rare African cichlid, probably I am the person that you'd want to be asking. So it's not like, not all fish stores are the same. Everyone has their things they're specializing in, things they're not so much concentrating on, and so you want to adjust your search according to what people do, what people don't do, and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's no harm in asking. Like, just send every fish store you possibly can and you're within reach a message asking about it, and hopefully one of them will be able to help you. So that's the first kind of step you'll want to take. Obviously this is after we've decided that we can care for it and know all about it and everything, done all our research. Now we're at the stage of trying to source them. So That's the caveat I want to put out there. I don't want anyone to think I'm just saying run out and grab them, but make sure you've got the right tank set up and all that kind of thing for this fish, so that once we do get them, we can actually take care of them and all that kind of thing. The next thing is, I guess, maybe more specific to African cichlids, but not exclusive. Like, it can happen with, you know, if you're into cories, like specific strands of guppies and that, and there's, you probably don't want to be 100% blindly trusting the person that you're buying from. Not saying that they're bad people or, like, you know, gonna rip you off or anything, but with rare fish, obviously they're gonna be costing a lot more. So if you're spending $200 on a African cichlid or $1,000 on a fancy pleco, you're probably going to want to make sure that the fish is what it's being presented as, if that makes sense. So something that happens a lot with African cichlids, for example, is they'll hybridize. And so, like, you might have a legit, I don't know, what's a rare African cichlid? Like a proper red shoulder. Like, proper red shoulder peacocks are so hard to find. That can be a whole video, because it's like about why, but basically, because red-shouldered peacocks is used to make OB peacocks, actually finding pure red shoulders is very difficult. So what can happen is, I'll have my pure red shoulders and I'm trying to breed through to OB peacocks potentially, and then what's going to happen is, over time, as we're breeding through generations, if we're not preserving that line, then we just get muddy ones that aren't pure. So then that's fine, but, and they'll be cool fish probably, but they will be hybrids. So you'll want to make sure that if you're trying to buy a red-shouldered peacock, that what you're actually buying is a legitimate red-shouldered peacock and not almost red-shouldered peacock, but not quite. And I mean, I'm picking on red shoulders, but it happens with anything. Like, it could be hybrid Corridora species, it could be other African cichlid hybrids, like anything. It could just be like a pure fish, but it's got a wonky spine, you know? I don't know. No way to really figure it out. So, well, that's not true. So do what I'm going to tell you next, and you'll be able to figure it out. So what you want to do is, assuming this is a natural fish, probably this isn't going to apply if you're looking at man-made fish like an OB peacock, but OB peacock isn't one of those super real ones. So I'm talking myself in a circle. So let's move this video forward. What you want to do is look online and look for pictures of this fish in the wild, and you will have to be very careful, because you also will have to find pictures that have not been edited or are very clear that they've been edited and how they've been edited, so you can like edit them back, if that makes sense. But I don't do that. I don't know how cameras work, but I would assume one would be able to do that. So you'll want to find a lot of pictures of what they look like in the wild. You don't want to go off one or two or whatever. You want, like, what's the word? Curate a little album for yourself of maybe, say, 15 pictures of this fish in the wild, and like keep it on your phone, or like print them out and keep it in your pocket or whatever. And you want to have a little library of these pictures, so that if you come across it, like if you go to a breeder's house and you're looking, you have it. If you go to a fish store, you have it. If you see someone online advertising them, you have it. So you can compare that. So like, is this fish the same as this fish? And like go through it and kind of like have a checklist. Like, you'll probably want to find, and this is a hard one, but you'll want to find someone who maybe knows more, like is a, I don't like the word, but like seasoned hobbyist in the space. So like, if you're looking for a fancy pleco, find someone who's been keeping the fancy plecos in a more than like a hobbyist sense. Like, find someone who's like breeding 10 different species and like all day, like read planet catfish all day, and like that's their thing. Find these kind of people, and you want to talk to them, like kind of get a bit of guidance, like what things to look for, like oh, you know, it's really common for X fish to have a wonky mouth, or like, oh, someone has been selling a bunch of this fish, calling it Red Empress, but it's not, like this kind of thing. So like, find out some of the common traps, particularly area specific, like what might have happened for your area recently, because that's going to give you the most amount of chances of catching any issues that might happen. So that's how I definitely put a lot of time. I'd kind of be a bit sort of paranoid about it. Like, you probably don't, like, maybe you don't need to. Maybe you find someone who's like an absolute legend and they've got the perfect fish and boom, no problem. But you want to be careful because you're probably going to be paying more money than you would for neon tetra. So you want to use that scale. But I would make sure what you're paying for is actually what you're getting. There's nothing worse. It's happened to anyone who's, I guess, more in the industry or keeping fish on a more sizable scale, has bought fish, and then it's not what they've bought them as. Like, you bought a colony of peacocks, and it's just a bunch of random hybrids. Or you've bought, you've bought a 10 centimeter pleco, and it's 3 centimeters. Like, it happens. So you kind of want to manage it and reduce these risks. The next thing I do is, no matter where you get it from the most trusted source in the entire world, I would quarantine this fish for at least 6 weeks. So like, have another tank set up and just keep it there for 6 weeks. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be big enough for long term. It's just temporary. But I would quarantine it like for disease prevention, of course, but you also will want to like fatten it up and condition it to your water and get it settled down in that, so that when you're putting it in your main tank, you have the best chance of survival. Again, it goes back to what we were saying before, is like, these fish are going to be expensive, so you want to make sure that you're giving them the best possible chance of survival. And not just that, the best possible chance of thriving in your environment, be it with the water parameters, with the other tank mates, with whatever. You'll want to give it the best chance because you're going to be spending more money on it. Of course, you're going to want it to go well. So yeah, I'd quarantine it and keep an eye on it. I'm not a fan of medicating preemptively. I think it's crazy. But I'd keep an eye on it and then medicate according to whatever issues you might encounter. But at the very least, I'd just fatten it up, keep the water clean, let it calm down, let it get adjusted, and then go from there. I think that's the most safe option. Of course, if it's going into a species-only tank, it doesn't really matter because it's basically quarantined anyway. But just as a general rule of thumb, I think it's, particularly for these kind of fish, it is well worth it. And I think you'll get a lot more sort of benefits from that. So yeah, I hope this kind of gives you a bit of a run through on how to find the more rare fish if you're interested in that kind of thing. Again, I would just do remember that they are going to be more expensive for the most part because they're rare. And don't get discouraged or disappointed because, like, it's, for the most part, people aren't trying to rip you off. It's just like, then people might have spent 10 times that to get the colony, so you have to recoup the cost in that. So don't take it personally or that if the price is high, because that's why it's rare, basically. But yeah, it is doable. For most things, they are, you can always find stuff. If it's around, you'll be able to find it. Maybe it'll take some time. You've got to remember to be patient with this kind of thing. Again, they're probably not going to be the kind of thing you just walk into a local fish store and buy. Maybe there will be, but probably not, just because it's not the world's most common. So naturally, they're not going to be around as much. But yeah, I hope that gives you guys a bit of a run through on how you might want to take a look and see if you can't find some of these more rare fish, because maybe it's just something you really love, like, oh, I really love this type of pleco, I would give anything for it. So hopefully it gives you at least somewhere to start if you want to look in that kind of space, and then you can obviously go from there and work it out as you go along. But yeah, if you've got any questions about it, please feel free to let me know. I love helping people find fish. It's great fun. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope it's given you guys some value, and I hope it answers some questions for you all, I guess, or opens some doors. So yeah, thank you guys very much. I love you all so much, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.